Hello, welcome to the Talking City podcast from the Manchester Evening News. I am Tyrone Marshall in the host chair today, joined by Simon Bajkowski, my travelling companion to St James's Park on Saturday night. How are we, Si? It was an eventful evening, wasn't it?
It was an eventful evening. Can we talk about why eating establishments close so early on motorway service stations on
I know.
the A1?
Yeah, that was scandalous, wasn't it? Trying to find some food at what was not an unreasonable time on a Saturday night was fairly disgraceful.
I have found it's difficult when you're coming back from a London game, is it, on like a Sunday night, and say Euston shuts all about 8 o'clock, I think, which is slightly annoying. But
yeah, I think it's fair to say if we'd have rocked up at Oxford services at 10:30 on Saturday night, we'd have been able to get a KFC, Si. I think that's pretty much a guarantee. So for me, a clear indication of the north-south divide once again, and Scott's Corner has definitely lost a few points, hasn't it? And was it Wetherby the second stop where KFC had just closed? I think
so, yeah. But from KFC to KDB, the football was worth the trip.
Nicely done. Well, I have to say, before when he started there and said, "Can we talk about?" I thought you were going to talk about my unnecessary trip to your house after you dropped me off when I managed to. So I dropped me off at the car park we met at, and then I realised I'd left my phone in his car, so I had to chase him back over the moors to retrieve that at 1 a.m. on Sunday morning. So quite an eventful night. But yes, onto the game. We'll be doing a couple of bits on the game here, and then looking ahead to City's break at the end. So do stay with us for all parts. But yeah, I mean, starting off with that game, what a game. It was just absolutely fantastic entertainment, wasn't it? Quality football, a bit of spite in it, a great atmosphere. It had the lot, didn't it?
Yeah, and I rewatched it this morning on Match of the Day, and that kind of, it is only highlights, but it really missed out the spice, because it really got quite feisty between the two teams. Both sets of fans unhappy with the referee, both sets of players unhappy with the referee, which usually tells you he's done a decent job, although there were certainly a few sort of questionable shouts in there. And yeah, the wider refereeing situation we can go on and on about, but it just seems like all the directives they brought in at the start of the season are gone and don't exist anymore. But it just had everything, and we kept turning to each other and being like, this is a great game. This is a great game. And probably from City's point of view, too great to watch, because they didn't have as much control as they would like, despite having so much possession. But really good Newcastle side. Sort of ran out of steam, I guess, and City, inspired by Kevin de Bruyne and Oscar Bobb, picked up a big 3 points.
They did, yeah. I mean, talking of that spell at the end of the first half injury time when Himmerai should clearly have got a second booking for his foul on Rodri, and then Rodri just took the law into his own hands, was fantastic and kind of raising the temperature. And aside from that, 5 brilliant goals as well. I can't imagine there's going to be a game maybe with a better quality of goal this season, because they were all fantastic goals.
Yeah. We were trying to sort of debate the best one in the car coming back. I think Bernardo Silva probably still wins it, because of just it's aesthetically beautiful, isn't it? It's a goal that everyone would kind of, I think that's the goal. If you were playing, you would love to score that goal. If you had sort of, the talent of Bernardo Silva rather than like 100,000th of the talent of Bernardo Silva, to be able to like backheel the ball in such fashion was great. But then, like every single goal was really, really top class.
Yeah, it felt like the beauty of it was that it was something for everything. Whatever your particular tastes are for goals, it felt like you were pretty well covered there. That they were all different. I mean, Newcastle's were both kind of similar, I guess, but City's were all different. There was something for everyone there.
Yeah, and the Newcastle finish is what kind of made them so impressive. Firstly, the sort of the ball over the top for Isak for the first one, but both Isak and Gordon found themselves in a position where they had a vulnerable Kyle Walker, in the sense that he was out of position or whatever, just didn't go over to Gordon as soon as he could. And it's like both of them had Walker on the back foot, allowed him to kind of recover, and then were like, now we're just going to beat you and curl it past the keeper anyway. So, Walker's defending left a lot to be desired, but, he'd almost kind of like got back to where he needed to be. And then they were just like, no, it don't matter. We're just launching this unstoppable shot past the goalkeeper. And then, De Bruyne's is sort of, both De Bruyne's goal and assist are just like, almost like geometry, aren't they? You could have them on a GCSE maths paper for exactly what angle is needed to produce the balls he does. And and aside from that, the atmosphere was amazing. It's always good at St James's Park, but the City fans certainly made a lot of noise at the end as well.
Yeah, they did. It was fantastic from the away end, to be fair. The noise you could hear at various points during the game, and especially at the end. It's not a great away end, it'd be fair to say, but it is a great atmosphere. You're right. I was saying beforehand how I'd done United up there back at the start of December, and that was an 8 p.m. Saturday night game. And I was talking to a friend yesterday at a children's birthday party trying to kill time, and that sort of kick-off time, a Saturday night, especially at 5:30 at Newcastle, is possibly the best in the country, because that stadium is right in the heart of the city centre. You can imagine Arthur Gallagher had been on it since midday, going out to the big market afterwards. It ticks every box, doesn't it?
I think 5:30 is better than 8 in that respect. Because, I know a lot of City fans who went up and just, jumped on a train back as soon as the match had finished, whereas sort of if it's 8 o'clock and you're finishing, there's maybe not a train back. I think the last train back was 9 and was cancelled as it sat on the platform for being overcrowded. So... more leveling up issues. But 8 o'clock, it feels like it's almost gone on too long, and maybe people have had too much fun before the game, whereas 5:30 really is. But it seems like Newcastle have had 1,000 5:30 kickoffs this season. It's like Liverpool play at 12:30, Newcastle play at 5:30, everyone else in between. But you can see why, because like you say, that the atmosphere is really good, and as you say again, the away end is not the best with them being up in the gods, but they were sort of to our left in the press box, and certainly absolutely loved that comeback, and the return of their hero, and also the rise of a new hero with a sort of catchy name, enough for a song already for him.
Yeah, he's going to have a lot of songs, I think, with a name like that. There's so much potential. Before we get on to the really good stuff, then, let's touch on the first half. I mean, it felt like City were playing pretty well in the first half, creating a lot of chances, and then all of a sudden they were 2-1 down. It felt at that point, I think I said to you, there was shades of Chelsea in terms of the way Newcastle had already threatened a couple of times to get in behind. When they won the ball, they were looking for that early ball over the top, and then suddenly 2 identical goals, 2-1. Like you say, Walker didn't cover himself in glory for either. City went on and won the game, but defensively, there's still concerns there, isn't there? There's still things to iron out. It felt like the type of goal they wouldn't have conceded last year. Their super strength last year was that one-on-one defending, wasn't it? That every single defender would win their duels. And this season, too many of them are losing them simply, I guess.
Yeah, and you can't really say that it's kind of different personnel. Gvardiol's come into the team and has affected it, but you've still got Ake there, you've still got Diaz, Walker. Walker sort of renowned last season with his duels against Vinicius, who showed again at the weekend what a talent he is. So I think there are kind of 2 aspects for it. There are, the first one is the defenders are not at the top of their game. Like Walker could have been better for both goals. Diaz gets charged down by Isak to sort of lead to the second goal. And the second is the makeup of the team with Jeremy Doku in it, and Josko Gvardiol, to be fair. But, you get, without wanting to say like Doku is costing the team, because he's not, but the risk and reward that you get, the reward you get from Doku's risk has to be balanced against the counter of when he loses the ball. And it became pretty evident early on that Newcastle were looking to dispossess Doku and slap the ball upfield to create a fast Newcastle attack. And they'd done that 2 times, I think, before City scored the first goal. That first one kind of leading to Ederson getting injured, and then second one, Diaz did well to put Isak off. But it was it was a deliberate tactic, and Doku kind of made the first goal with his dribbling and then his pass out to Walker for the right, but then also he did get caught up in a Newcastle goal as well. So that is the sort of the high wire and the higher wire than last season that City do play when it's Doku rather than Grealish.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned Bardell there. I mean, he's probably a topic for another day, really, but it's still not really clicking with him that often. And there was one of the beauties of the press box at St James's Park is that you are so close to the action and so close to the dugouts. And there was a point in the first half where it was so loud that Guardiola was trying to get Guardiola's attention, to get Diaz to get him, I think, and then Guardiola basically did this moonwalk across the technical area to try and show what body shape he wanted Guardiola to have and how he wanted him to defend. And it kind of shows that he's still needing this minute coaching at times during games, that he's not quite grasping that role fully, is he?
Yeah, and even at the end, sort of amid the celebrations, Pep was pulling him to one side and, on the pitch telling him what he should have done at this point and that point. And, his performance was kind of like his whole season, really. He's promising going forward, but teams are exploiting the space that he leaves in behind. And, from last season, going from sort of Ake and Grealish on the left, so it's like a grounded, sort of reliable side. You've got Guardiola and Doku, which is infinitely more exciting, but also kind of a bit more dangerous for you as much as the opposition. Or that's the balance. So I still don't know why you've got Ake playing in centre back and Guardiola left back. I sort of get the idea that play left back until you're comfortable at centre back in a Pep team, maybe because there's less risk at full back. But City did sign one of the best centre backs in the world for whatever 78 million it was for him. So it still feels like he would be more comfortable at centre back and has been on the rare times he's played there. And Ake would be really good at left back because he's kind of really good anywhere. Yeah,
exactly. And just one other thing to touch on in the first half then, you kind of mentioned it there, Ederson's injury. Incredible that for so long people have been saying, at some point the offside flag not going up is going to lead to an injury. And now it's led to an injury for two City players in the space of 4 games, I think, at Everton and Newcastle. I mean, incredibly unfortunate. We don't really know how the state of Ederson's injury at the moment. This one, it kind of felt more excusable than the Everton one. I think the Everton one, from my memory, looked clearly offside and wasn't given, and Stones had to make the tackle and got injured. This looked a lot more marginal, and the linesman is probably doing the right thing, but it's not an ideal situation, is it, where a piece of play that doesn't matter is leading to your goalkeeper going off injured?
Yeah, it's difficult to... I don't know. I think when we first looked at it, we thought, that does look closer. But when our replay screens weren't the best. When you see it, there are like 3 Newcastle players clearly offside. And, the first player in the linesman's taken up a very good position. The first shirt that he sees is black and white. Now, I don't want to blame VAR because everyone blames VAR for everything, even when it's like on-field officials making the decision. But it's kind of a casualty of the VAR era that the on-field officials make fewer decisions. Without VAR, I think the linesman sees the black and white shirt and puts his flag up. Whereas now he's like, maybe we have to let it carry on. And it is really, really unfortunate. And it's not the referee's fault that City have picked up 2 injuries in the last 2 away games from this sort of strange thing. But at the same time, sort of the more it is in use and the more times it happens, you're going to get more injuries to players because you're going to get more chances for players to come together and hurt themselves in action, in the same way that like 10 minutes of injury time rather than 5 increases the risk of injuries. Well, playing when you shouldn't be playing increases the risk of injuries. And I think it's hard because we would moan anyway. If he'd flagged it as off immediately and then he was on, then Newcastle would have had a right to complain, but it was really unfortunate for City, and it is another thing in the game where you feel like surely there has to be a better way of doing this. I don't know what I don't know what the change would be, but
no, well that's it. You feel like there's a better way of doing it, but no one quite knows what it is. I guess because you don't want to see a linesman put his flag up and it turns out to be onside. Maybe they need to kind of be a bit braver with offside decisions, but we've seen plenty of VAR calls where you think that looks offside and it's on, or vice versa. So yeah, it's not easy to know what the solution is it?
Yeah, I don't know whether the linesman flags for no offsides and then it's semi-automated or fully automated, or I don't know, but it just, or whether the system is perfect and actually, I or you can say, yeah, he should have put his flag up there because I thought it was obvious, and somebody else and Howard Webb will say, no, it wasn't obvious, so he did exactly the right thing. And you suspect kind of the reasoning, if they're asked, for that is that, yeah, it was tight, so he didn't put his flag up, but it sort of, you can see why City have been angered by it, because they lost John Stones to it, and they've now lost, they now might have lost Ederson to it. So, take out your best centre back and your best goalkeeper, and you're a weaker side through no real fault of your own.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, that's all for part one. We'll be back after this break to talk about a couple of the heroes from Saturday night. Welcome back to the Talking City podcast. Now, for those of you listening on Friday, you might have heard our producer and stand-in host, Seb Parkinson, asking Si if Kevin de Bruyne was finished with perfect comic timing. You'll be pleased to know that we've consigned Seb back to his studio to produce today. So, Si, I think it's fair to say de Bruyne is not finished. I think we're agreed on that.
Well, I'm just relieved I put Seb in his place on Friday. Yeah, it's he is just remarkable. Like, as I said on Friday, like he wants to get back to his best, and he will get back to his best level, but I didn't expect what he produced on Saturday. And you think back to it, and just 20 minutes to produce a spectacular goal and a spectacular assist under the highest pressure to turn around a Premier League game is astonishing, and kind of it kind of gives City an aura that maybe the team don't have. I've heard like the result described as like a turning point and things like that, and it doesn't really feel like it. The match itself was sort of that. I don't think the match itself will be that significant in City's season. But it will be significant if it's the return of Kevin de Bruyne, who then goes on to win the league for City. So it was almost, the game ended up more about de Bruyne than it did City.
Yeah, absolutely. De Bruyne is now 6 assists off the top assister in the Premier League this season, and having missed half the season, I don't think any of us would be surprised if he still ended up winning that title. He is remarkable. We were talking afterwards, but he's played 40 minutes of Premier League football this season and has a goal and 2 assists. I mean, I thought, we were talking earlier about the quality of the goals. I thought his goal was absolutely beautiful in the way that he scored from the edge of the area, 20 yards. And that shot just had no power. It was almost like a computer game where he just lined the ball up into the very corner of the net and thought, well, that's the angle is perfect. I don't need that much power. And he just caressed it in, really, just stroked it in to the bottom corner. It was a thing of beauty. And he impacted the game straight away, didn't he? He didn't need time to get up to speed. He's only had that run out against Huddersfield last week, and he came on and influenced the game straight away. The goal, the assist, he almost put a goal on the plate for Alvarez. There was a few of those. He got into those really good inside right positions and put a few dangerous balls across the box. I mean, straight away, he made City look more dangerous, didn't he?
Yeah, and I don't know whether it's coincidence or not, but, as soon as he comes on, City have that really dangerous free kick on the edge of the box, and they're like, Kevin, you are taking it. You've not kicked a ball since 2 hours ago in the warm-up, but we're looking for a way back into the game, and we want you to try and put it in the net from 25 yards instead of, any of the other world-class players on the pitch. So it was almost like from the moment he came on, City looked to him and said, what can you do to help turn this game around? And he delivered. And yeah, like you say, his finish for the goal was just extraordinary. And it's a finish that you don't really see too often in the game. But he just has such precision and the time. And it was, he got asked afterwards by Belgian TV, because when City drew 3-3 at St James's last season, he played this ridiculous assist through for Bernardo Silva that went through the legs of Joe Willock. So it was sort of like 2 nutmegs, because his goal went through Shah's legs, and he was asked about, is that a coincidence or what? And he was like explaining afterwards the very deliberate reasoning and technique why he aims to look for players with the legs open and then fire the ball through it. So just like nothing he does is by chance, but he makes it look like it all is, because you can't envisage it happening. He just has this amazing ability and aura around him where people think he's going to do magic things, even if he isn't. But against Newcastle, he just produced 2 of the highest bits of quality in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Kevin de Bruyne is back now, and the rest of the country is definitely shaking. It is fair to say. I mean, how big an impact can he have on the second half of this season? Because City are within touching distance of top spot when they've had, until Saturday, De Bruyne for 20 minutes this season. Haaland is going to miss 2 months of this season. If he's back in February, they're in a great position, aren't they, with those key players back? But as Guardiola has pointed out on a couple of times, De Bruyne isn't going to help them keep more clean sheets necessarily. So how much of an impact can he have on this season? And is it fair to say it's not as simple as De Bruyne is back, now City will turn on the afterburners and run away with this?
Yeah, I think so. I think sort of caution is needed around De Bruyne still. Pep said afterwards the target is 90 minutes, 90 minutes, 90 minutes, but he's still working back to that. And, there's no certainty that he won't get injured again. Maybe there's another delayed offside flag, and this time it's Kevin's turn. Anything can happen. The reason why I said it didn't feel like a turning point in City's season is because, like I say, they're 2 points off top. But even if they'd lost, St James is a hard place to get a result. Arsenal have lost there. Chelsea, United, Liverpool sort of did a rescue act to win there. They were behind going into injury time. So, I think even if they'd lost, people still would have said, well, they've got plenty, and Haaland still to come back and Stones still to come back. But with De Bruyne coming back the way he has, you sort of think, the team will have more match winners in the side and more match winning moments in the side. And you also think, Pep said afterwards, like the style of play doesn't necessarily matter, but it's having that person there who will always put the right ball in. And if you've got the runners, which, Alvarez is and Foden is and Doku is, then De Bruyne will find them better than anyone else on the pitch. Foden's done an amazing job in the centre this year, but he's still not got the talent that De Bruyne has, because no one has the talent that De Bruyne has. You would say De Bruyne won't improve the defensive solidity, and I think it has to be a worry. We were talking afterwards, weren't we, about the fact that, we both said City lost control of this game, and they did, and they weren't great for, until sort of the 75th minute they were losing. And I think Alvarez had a good shot once De Bruyne came on, but before that, they'd not really tested Dubravka all that much. So, they were dominating the ball and playing some nice bits of football, but they weren't really kind of knocking down the Newcastle goal until De Bruyne came on. So just that more direct threat will help them score more goals. But they've still been conceding a lot of goals and conceding at the back with defensive mistakes and the makeup of the team. So yeah, I think it has to help them, De Bruyne coming back, but he won't be the miracle cure for the team. And I think, if they continue to concede as many goals as they're conceding, they will find it difficult to win trophies.
Yeah. And in the end, De Bruyne had to share the spotlight with Oscar Bobb. The fantastic injury time moments, his winning goal, another brilliant goal. The pass from De Bruyne was superb, but Bobb's feet to get inside Trippier and then inside the Bravka and finish in the same move was fantastic, and a brilliant story. A few hours after Cole Palmer had scored again for City, Oscar Bobb, kind of his replacement, I guess, in the squad, came on and scored a vital goal. We got to speak to him afterwards, and he was great value in the interview, talking about how he never quite knows if he's got the faith and the trust of Guardiola, but he told him to go on and win the game, and how he felt he'd score the goal. And quite a nice line about how he'd always thought his first City goal would come at the Etihad with City 3 or 4-0 up. That's kind of when he's been playing and when he's been getting his game time. He never expected it to come in a moment like this, and you could see how enjoyable it was for him. But it was a brilliant moment for him, and he is starting to really influence and contribute to games off the bench, isn't he?
Yeah, it was phenomenal. Again, it was just kind of bedlam at the end. And, nobody saw the De Bruyne pass other than Bobb. And Guardiola was saying afterwards, like, he took Bobb on the summer tour on kind of the basis of Cheeky Ederson telling him to. And he said straight from the start, kind of the players recognised him and thought, yeah, this is a guy. You sometimes get it where youngsters come into the team and they don't necessarily get that much of the ball, and they're not trusted that much by the teammates who don't know them that well and don't know what they can or can't do. When Grealish first came to City, and he basically just said, I'll just give it to Kevin every time I get the ball because Kevin is the best player on the pitch. So, that had to be kind of coached out of him a bit. But they've trusted Bobb, and Guardiola has trusted Bobb in big games. He brought him on at Wolves at half time, I think, when they were losing. He brought it on at Villa when I think it was 0-0, but then they were very quickly 1-0 down. And bringing him on at Newcastle when, there were other options on the bench. Grealish was sick and probably didn't look like he could play that long anyway. But, he could have brought on Nunes or, different options, and he went for Bobb, and Guardiola was absolutely over the moon, but so was Oscar Bobb, because he's had to wait. We're sort of in a situation at City where their academy players are coming through younger and younger, and Rico Lewis 18 and Foden was very young, and it's almost like if you get past 18 and you haven't made it in this team, then your chances aren't coming. Oscar hadn't played senior football before the age of 20. And he's just, and now he's got Premier League goal, Champions League goal. He's got a goal at international level for Norway because they've sort of responded to his City form and given him his international debut, and he's took his opportunities there. So, you would say the best night of his young career, but also you would say he's got many big nights ahead of him.
Yeah, he has. And it'll be interesting to see how he's used for the rest of the season, because I think we've touched on a couple of times recently that if everyone is fit, City do have a lot of depth suddenly, attacking-wise. Haaland and Alvarez. You've got Grealish and Doku on the left, Bernardo and Foden on the right, arguably De Bruyne back. So there's a lot of exceptional senior footballers there, but you do feel like Bobb has suddenly got a lot of faith of Guardiola, and is certainly someone that is going to be turned to from the bench during the running.
Yeah, and I think, the Newcastle goal will be the making of him, because when he came on at half time for Nunes at Wolves, it was like, well, this is a bit strange. And even when he came on at Villa, him coming on was more a sign of sort of the weakness of City's bench, that they couldn't turn to anyone else. And then he comes on at Newcastle and scores that goal, and you've got people saying, oh, well, how can Newcastle compete when City can afford to bring Oscar Bobb off the bench? And it's like, suddenly he's this first team star. But he will be from now. And from now on, if Pep brings him off the bench, it won't be like, who is this kid who he's giving minutes to or whatever. It'll be like, he's the guy who scored that stoppage time winner at one of the most difficult grounds in the country, who is a proven member of the first team squad. And, Cole Palmer was scoring important goals at the start of the season for City, and is now doing the same for Chelsea. But, City have enough talent coming through that they can get by just fine.
Absolutely, yeah. That's all for part 2 of the podcast. We'll be back shortly to wrap up a few bits and pieces. Welcome back to the final part of the Talking City podcast, ahead of a break, a January mid-season break, probably for the final time in the Premier League. I don't think anyone connected to football will be getting a break in the near future, the way the fixture list is going. But we have one here, for better or worse. We've got it on the podcast schedule. We've got here Act 3. The first question is any transfer news to discuss, and I think the short answer is no. I guess the headline news in that regard is that Kalvin Phillips did return on the City team bot on Saturday.
Yeah, and I sort of touched on it on Friday, but the Phillips situation, Newcastle and anyone else is waiting for a favour from City that they don't need to give. Phillips was fully involved in the celebrations as City won at Newcastle. He's a firm part of the City squad, despite being basically a non-playing member of the City squad. So if he wants to move, then he is going to have to convince City to lower their demands for a loan move for the rest of the season, or convince any interested parties like Newcastle to pay what City think he is worth. Phillips has been driving this. Let's be honest. Phillips was the one in summer who said, "I want to stay," when City were open to letting him go. And Phillips was the one who came out on international duty and said in October or whenever, and said, I need to be playing more regular football if I need to be at the Euros. So now it's kind of on Phillips again to say, this is the move that is happening, that I've managed to agree, because, City won't be, City won't, like any player, City won't stop him from leaving, but they won't let him leave for below value because they're not a charity.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like any club that wants him needs Phillips to push for it, don't they, really? I mean, he knows the writing is on the wall for him now at City. He's had Guardiola apologising to him in press conferences in public. He had that moment earlier in the season when he said, this is the biggest week in my City career, and started one of 3 games that Rodri was unavailable for. He knows he's done. So, like you say, City want a fair deal, but they've always been very willing to let players leave. And if Phillips is demanding to leave and kicking up a fuss, then it's probably going to help teams looking for it. And he, like I say, he knows the Euros are coming up. He knows he's got to go and play. You would think it still feels unfathomable that he will be here at the end of January, but the way it's going, with the clock ticking, it's, you wonder, will that actually end up happening?
Yeah. And if he stays, City will be very happy to keep him. But you saw, especially with Newcastle, Newcastle have unfortunately painted themselves into a corner whereby, one of their star signings in midfield at the start of the season is unavailable to play for the rest of the season. And they've made no secret of the fact that they're too constrained financially to make a permanent signing. But also their midfielder is coming back next season. So, a loan does make sense. But every football club in existence is out for their own interests and is not in the business of helping rivals out. Imagine if Newcastle were like fourth in the table, which is not that sort of fanciful, and we're asking for Kalvin Phillips for free for the duration of the season, basically. And it's like, well, no, why would we help out someone who's sort of stopping, potentially harming our chances of success? So it's just business at the end of the day. And, I could see a situation where City lower the demands. But I think Newcastle will have to move further than they have done towards City's demands if they're going to get Phillips. And like you say, I think Phillips might have to be really actively involved.
Yeah, definitely. It's a week on Friday now, City's next fixture away at Tottenham in the FA Cup, so a good break for them. They are off to Abu Dhabi. Neither of us are going with them, unfortunately. There'll be no winter sun here. We'll be ploughing on through today's the most miserable day of the year, apparently. So hopefully we brought some.
Well, there's lots of winter sun where we are, so
that's true. Yeah.
Just not
it's
warm.
Cold. It's cold, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very, very cold sun.
Yeah.
What do we know about Abu Dhabi? What are we expecting? Si?
I mean, it's similar to pre-season, isn't it? In that where the perfect pre-season tour is one where you don't really have many. The perfect pre-season tour for a club, not for media, but for a club is where you don't have many or any media or commercial obligations. You don't have to go anywhere where you don't know what the facilities are like or where the facilities are substandard. And you get a nice bit of sun. And that is what City are getting in Abu Dhabi, really. They've been there before, so they know exactly what it has, and it meets their requirements. And, they've been there before and they're going back, so they must like it. And, also, you never know, there might be some talks an executive level going on, given Sheikh Mansour will be might pay them a flying visit or anything like that, or you might see some of the board out there and the downtime when they're not training. But it's basically the players have had a few days off now to go wherever they wanted. So like Haaland's in Italy, and a few of them have jetted off, and then they're all coming back on Wednesday to go for a week of training. And Pep's been clear, it's not a holiday, it's a week of training. They're going to do 4 or 5 sessions out there and prepare for the second half of the season. But they felt last year like it really set them up for the second half of the campaign, in which they won 3 trophies. So I think they will be hopeful that a sort of, not a getaway, but a training in better conditions than they would here will pay off in the long run.
Yeah, well, they all spoke very positively about the week in Saudi Arabia, when obviously there was business to be done with the Club World Cup. But Pep did say a couple of times, we don't tend to get this in the season where you get everyone together. But obviously they're going to have it twice in the space of a month with this week. And that week in Saudi Arabia has clearly changed something in terms of results, and maybe brought about that kind of spirit and togetherness. And we've seen fairly iconic celebrations in the last 2 away games in front of the away ends at Everton and Newcastle. So maybe it's a chance to build on that, but it probably means it's going to be a quiet few days for us.
Yeah, I mean, you also, what you got in Saudi, City left having drawn with 2-2 with Palace, and it was like, they could be 12 points behind, 10 points behind by the time they come back. And by the time they came back, Arsenal and Liverpool had both dropped points, and suddenly City were sort of back in the title race. So again, City have done their job by winning at Newcastle. They're going away because of the split winter break. You got Liverpool playing Bournemouth and Arsenal at home to Palace, which both could win their games. But if there's any drop off, then again, City will return from another kind of Middle East jaunt with sort of an extra boost in the title race. So they're in sort of a position where they're able to kind of watch on and see what others do.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, thank you very much for your time, Si, and enjoy the winter sun in your neck of the woods.
Yes, and you.
That is all from today's podcast. Please do leave us a 5-star review. Remember to like and subscribe and follow and all of that stuff. And we'll be back with you soon. Not entirely sure when. Obviously, not a lot going on with the winter break, but we'll be back with you either later this week or early next week and looking ahead to the FA Cup trip to Tottenham. But for now, thanks for listening and catch you all soon.